Hello class, this is Professor Tweed doing another AutoCAD video for ARCH 110 at SUNY Delhi. We're up to week 2 and you can go to the Venko Hall site. You can download week 2's assignment. There's actually a couple other things you'll need in here. You'll need to download the floor plan with dimensions and the wall section example. There's actually 2 drawings that we're going to do. This video is the first one. It's actually the wall section example. This one starts you out and gives you some instruction. This one sort of shows you final dimensions, and then this one shows you final dimensions for the second drawing we'll be doing, which I will follow up with the second video. So I've already downloaded this here. This is the one that shows the instructions for both of the assignments, and again, I won't call it fully a step-by-step example, but it does give you important dimensions. It tells you what layers to use, things like that. And the first assignment will be drawing this wall section on this title block. And then there is a second file which gives you some dimensions. Now we aren't putting in dimensions yet. But if you sort of zoom in, you can start to see what the various dimensions of this wall section are. You can print them out, you can download them, whatever you need, you can do that. So I'm going to move this file off to my sheet. Now, being that this is our second video, I'm still going to go fairly step by step. You know, if you're good at AutoCAD, just go ahead and draw. But if you're still trying to figure out how to draw various things, then you might want to listen in and follow step by step. I might talk a lot about clicking and what buttons I'm pushing, just to help people who are new to AutoCAD get through this. Now, as these videos progress throughout the semester, I probably will rely less on saying every single thing I'm doing, with the expectation that you are learning the commands, you're learning how to use the mouse and in those various other aspects. So I already have AutoCAD running, and you'll notice I have the template that we used from last week. If you don't know where the template is or what it means, go back to the previous video, CMU block, to see those details. But I'm going to be using this as a template for both of the drawings for this week's assignment. So I've already got it open here, and it's already set to medium. As you know, I don't like the fact that this medium layer is set to black, so I'm going to change my layer properties. I'm going to come down to medium, I'm going to select it, and I'm actually going to change its color. I'm not sure what color. I think I used blue last time in the last video, but I'm sort of noticing some of the heavies are blue. So maybe I will go to cyan instead, which is just light blue, and do that. It doesn't really matter for the most part, and I should talk to the other instructors about changing that, but we do want to see what we're drawing, so I will close that. For the CMU block, most all the line weights we're going to be doing are on medium with one exception. And when we get to that point, we'll show you. But otherwise, I'm going to start drawing. And I'm going to start drawing by starting at the footing at the bottom. So I'm going to go to L, and I'm going to do the width of this footing. And if you're looking at your drawing, you see that it's 2 foot. So I'm going to hit 2 foot and then enter. And I'll zoom in so I can actually see it. And the height of the footing is 10 inches. So I'm going to do 10. And since it's just in inches, I don't need any markers. I can just put 10 and enter, and it draws it 10 feet high. So I'm going to sort of finish off the footing. Now you'll notice that the footing is, since I'm using these words, I'll pull this back in here. This is the footing here. This is the concrete basement wall, and of course this is the framed wall on top using 2x4s and other pieces of structure. Well, notice here this is called the key. That's that little divot there that locks the concrete wall into the footing. And so it's made with a 2x4. We have to remember when we see things in this assignment that say things like 2x4 or 2x6 and the other pieces that we'll see there, that those are the finished product, and that these sizes are smaller. So 2x4 is really 1.5 by 3.5 inches. So that's the dimension I'm going to make that little hole there. And I'm going to start with this midpoint snap. And I know it's 2x4 down, but that's really 1.5. So I'm going to do 1.5, enter. Right? I could have offset my line. And then I got to go 2x4 on either side. That's 3.5. So I'm going to do 3.5, enter. Now this line needs to be centered on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to move. I'm going to hit this line, hit enter, then go from my midpoint snap right there to the end point of that line. to set the width in place. And then what I'll do is I'll move this vertical line to this end, and then I'll copy this vertical line from this endpoint to this endpoint and click enter when I'm done to draw that keyhole shape. The last thing is I just need to trim this out. So I'm going to hit trim, and to make everything selection I'm going to hit enter, and now I can pick this line. I'm done trimming and I'll hit enter. The next thing to do is draw the concrete wall. It is, let's see, from the bottom of, actually what I might need to draw first is start to mark out the grade. You know, I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to draw things. I'm going to have guidelines that'll further erase. That's just the way you go in AutoCAD. But from the drawing it looks like from the bottom of the footing, which is here, so I'm going to snap there. I started a line. I'm going to pull up because the grade is 4 feet up. So I'm going to do 4 feet. Alright, and then to draw the grade, which is just the ground, I'm going to just draw an angle that is sort of downwards in a way. The reason for that is if it rained here on this ground, I want it to slope away from the building. So this is one of the few times in architecture we don't draw a straight line. It's sort of the symbol for the grade sloping away. Now we'll notice for the height of the concrete wall we'll be drawing, I want to be 6 inches above this grade point. So I'm going to start line again, start at this end point, and draw a line up 6 inches, type 6, and hit enter. And I'm going to draw across. That's the top of my concrete wall. All right. Now I'm going to start a line, L, enter. I'm going to go from the midpoint of the footing, because the concrete wants to be at the midpoint. I'm going to draw straight up. That is the height of my concrete wall. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit enter. Now this concrete wall is 10 inches. So that if this is the center line, I need 5 inches on each side. So I'm going to go offset, 5, enter, click on the line to the left, click on the line to the right, and hit enter to offset. Now I'm going to just basically clean up all of these elements. So I'm going to erase this top line, erase this center line, and even erase this line here and this line here. And I will trim, hit the trim button, hit enter, then I'll click here and here to trim up that line. The reality is now I need to move my slope over to this point. So I'm going to hit the move button, select this line, hit enter, select my endpoint, and slide over and click. And I've got my basically wall done. I guess I do need to cap off the top of my wall, so I'll hit L, enter, and do a line click from the endpoint there to the click to the endpoint here. And when I'm done with that, hit enter. Right, so there's all my concrete, and here is the slope of my wall. The next we'll have to do the framing. So the piece that sits on top of the concrete wall, that's called the sill. So I'm going to zoom in to just draw a little more accurately. And in this case, our sill is going to be a 2 by 6. So 2 by 6, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to start here. I'm going to go up 1.5 because that's the 2, right? In lumber, 1.5 is actually a 2. And then I'm going to go over 5.5 to draw the 5. And I'll draw the line down. You'll notice in your drawing, and I'll pull this across really quick, that some of these lumber, when we cut them in section, they have this little X. That's to show that we're cutting the lumber and it's going sort of to each of the frame members on each side. So that little X will actually put in, it's really easy to draw in. We'll just draw an X. Click endpoint to endpoint there, hit enter. And if I hit enter again, I'll start line. So click from endpoint to endpoint, click and hit enter. Now the one thing you'll notice that those were light lines. And so I'm going to select the X by drawing a little box. And I'm going to put it on the hatch layer, which will turn it red. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard to deselect it. The next piece is the framing member that comes up this way, and this is a 2 by 10. Now a 2 by 10 is only 9 1/4 inches tall. So I'm going to hit 9.25. Or I could have typed in 1 1/4, but the 2 is still 1.5, so that's 1.5. Enter, and I'll come down. Hit enter to end line. And again, I need this X in the center. So I'm going to start line, click from that endpoint to that endpoint, hit enter to end line, hit enter to begin line, click from endpoint to endpoint, hit enter to end. Click to draw a box and select the X. Come up to layers, select it and change it from medium to hatch. Press escape to deselect those lines. Now off to the right is the joist headed out in the direction. So that's just simple lines. I'm going to click line. I'm going to draw out. There's no you know, that we don't know how wide the house is. You typically don't in a wall section. So I'm just going to draw it out to however far I think it should go and hit enter. And I'm going to draw another line as far out as I think it should go. And I'm going to sort of select this line and pull down so I know that they're aligned and hit enter. Okay, I'm just checking something on what we're supposed to draw. So you'll notice on the sheet that we're drawing from, there's lots of notes and there's lots of dimensions. That's so we know how big to draw things. We haven't gone over notes yet, and we're not going to in here. But you'll also know there's this little squiggle, which is called a break line, here and here. And so we need to draw that in. And I'm going to do that with a polyline, so it's all one object. So I'm going to go to Polyline, click here. I'm going to start. Sorry, I'm going to click it. I missed my click. Click there. I'm going to start by selecting the endpoint and just draw down just a little bit. And then I'm going to draw at sort of an angle to the left and an angle down and to the right. And then I'm going to snap to this point. I haven't clicked. I'm just hovering to get this endpoint snap. So when I pull down, it's perfectly straight. And I'm going to pull past this line and push enter. Now, this is a little short, so I'm going to select the line, click this little blue dot to pull it up over the line that way, and then press escape to deselect. And so I've got that little squiggly line there that's pretty nicely drawn. The next thing is the subfloor that sits on top of this, which is 3/4 inches tall. So for that I'm just going to offset. I'm going to go to my offset button, click it, type in 0.75 for 3/4 of an inch, push enter, select my line, pull up, and push enter. Now this line should come all the way to here, so I'm going to do a little line here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to start line from that endpoint and go up 0.75 inches and push enter to end line. And I'm going to fill it with a radius of 0, which is the default. So I'm just going to click this line and this line to pull this all as one line. Now this is, I think, the proper way to do this. The subfloor is one object, so this is one line. When I get down here, it's okay that this bottom line is 2 pieces. You could draw it as one, but it's also okay if it's 2, because really the thing that we'll read out, and as we get more into using layers and stuff, you'll want different layers for this object versus this object, so you will need this line independently. So in that case, we are okay there with good drawing practices, but again, you do have some flexibility there. Alright, sitting on top of this, we have another, I guess we're using 2x6 wall. So we've got another sill here, which is a 2x6. I'm going to draw another one, which again is 1.5 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide. And click around and hit enter when done. Start line again to draw the X. Click enter, and enter a second time. Click enter. Select these lines, change them to hatch, and press escape. Right. Now on either side of this wall, we have drywall on the inside, which is going to be a 1/2 inch, and we have a 1/2 inch of plywood on the outside. So I have to start by drawing these lines as well. I'm going to start a line. I'm going to click here and draw up. Again, we're not necessarily going to sew the ceiling, so we just draw up something that looks good to the width of this, so somewhere around here, and hit enter. And I'm going to copy this line. I'm going to do CO for copy. I'm going to select it from right to left, hit enter, select a base point here, and move it there and hit enter to move it out. Because now I can just offset these each a 1/2 inch on either side. So I'll hit offset button, type in 0.5 for 1/2, hit enter, select this line and put it here, select this line and put it over here, and hit enter. Now the outside will come 2 inches down below the top of our concrete wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by offsetting this 2 inches down. So I'm going to go offset. I'm going to put 2 enter for distance. I'm going to select that my concrete wall and pull down and push enter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fillet this all into place. So I'm going to hit fillet, select this line here and this line here, and then I will trim this piece out because I don't need it. So I'm going to do trim, hit enter, then select that line. That trims it up. And we're looking pretty good. The last piece we just need is another break line across here. And if I really want it to look the same, I'll just copy this one up and rotate it into place. So I'm going to go to copy, select this, enter, click a base point, just move it up. It doesn't really matter, so I just want to move it up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate, click the line again, hit enter. Again, right now the base point doesn't matter. I'm just going to click slightly off to the side, and I'm going to pull straight up so I know it rotates perfect 90 degrees, and click to end it. Lastly, I'll just move it into place. So I'll hit the move button, I'll select the line, and I'll hit enter. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the end point of that break line. I'm going to select the end point of the top of my wall so that those two align, and then I'm going to move again, hit move, select the break line, hit enter, and I'm just going to move it slightly over. So you can see I selected a base point way off to the left, but I'm just moving it over so that the squiggle is approximately centered in the framed wall. So right about there, and I got that break line added. When I zoom out, we can see this is what the first part of this assignment should look like. The last thing we'll want to do is we'll just want to set it on the title block. So I did talk a little bit more in detail about setting things on title block in the CMU video. I will go over it briefly again here, but if you need more detail, again, go to that video. So in this case, we're going to use the portrait one, 11 by 17 portrait. So I'm going to hit 11 by 17 portrait, double click inside the viewport. I'm going to double tap on my scroll wheel to zoom it in so I see my drawing, and I'm going to come down to this area to select my scale, and this drawing is going to be at 1 inch equals 1 foot. So when you find it, you click on it, it sort of zooms it in. I can push down with my scroll wheel to pan to sort of make sure it's nice and centered. Just verify that your scale didn't change, because sometimes it's easy to do that. When I'm done, I'll double click outside to get back into my paper, and then you'll want to scroll in and again put your name in, scale, all of these things. You should to do that, it's just double click. Make sure that it's all capital letters. But since I went over in detail how to fill in every single section here in the previous video, go to that video if you can't figure out. But it's just pretty much straightforward information. So with that, this assignment will be done. You'll need to, of course, print it out with whatever printer you have available to you in your room and turn it in for a grade. So I will see you for the second half of this week, which is drawing a floor plan and a follow-up video from here.